So we're going to give each group 5 minutes. That's not a lot of time. And remember, I know you discussed, 25 minutes worth of stuff, so it's a lot. So just pick your main points, and we're going to be able to give all of your notes, your lists, your problems, your questions, all of that to Mia, so it'll get all in the notes. But this is an opportunity for you to just pull out the main points. Okay? So, which group would like to go first?
I may have to start.
Okay, so you guys can start.
So under the heading of marketing, I don't know if people can see that. Our suggestions were that, more suggestions or things to keep in mind for marketing, that whatever policy is suggested, it has to be simple enough that everyone understands it. And at some level, all families have to hear yes. And under that is, do we even know right now, are we disappointing or turning away more families through the current policy? Because the only people who are guaranteed anything would be if you're half a mile from your neighborhood school. Everything else is it's a maybe. Everything else is a maybe.
I think that a large number of parents are disappointed just because they don't understand the system at all.
Right, that's the number one point. Number one answer on the board. And call/rebrand. Is it choice or is it chance? Whatever we come up with, I think we have to be honest first and foremost with what the policy is allowing parents. Lottery versus selection. One of the big things that I think would market well to everybody is this notion of school equity. If you go to neighborhood schools, there will be schools that have more concentration of poverty. And I don't think that necessarily, or I may not even change that much, but some schools may require more resources than others, and if we just do it as a correlation to socioeconomic status, there would be a shift in resources so that there is equity across the district, not equality necessarily. The example would be art.
Right.
You might have more intense art in certain neighborhoods where the kids may not be getting the chance to go to the Strong Museum. Whereas my wife just went this morning with my pre-K age daughter and 2 friends who go to the same School 52.
Or in some schools you need a reading department with reading teachers, and in another school you don't need an entire reading department.
Right.
That's right.
But you're giving the schools what they need.
And I think you're honest with parents in that regard. And I don't think anybody would say, how dare you do equity in my district? Along the lines of interacting with the mayor's office and some of the neighborhood empowerment groups, it'd be interesting if there could be school-based residency promotion programs to combat the transiency. If we know that families are apt to move from apartment to apartment or apartment into a home, it'd be kind of cool if we could entice the families, hey, stay in the neighborhood. Maybe you can move closer to the school, further away, whatever, but stay within the neighborhood, and that's where the mayor's office could incentivize, not just stay in your zone, 1/3 of the city. Stay in your neighborhood.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right. And then Ron brought this point up I thought powerfully, is that how can we market and build neighborhood culture and pride? Like that's part of the big point, the big picture. And then one of the last points was, if we were to have a citywide lottery, that's something that you could market to families as, in 58 school. I think you'd have a hard time moving that out of the district because it has such a good reputation. But that could be marketed as a couple of citywide select schools.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are placement.
And one of the things we talked about is that families lead before the process actually even begins. From pre-K, there's a lot of confusion and changes in the policy, and we're going to say blah, 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 right? Because we're not sure what that blah is over here, okay? And it's confusing, but I do know that families are leaving before the kindergarten, before they get their kids in kindergarten. Or if not, they're not out of the city school district yet, they leave before middle school. And they pick up their families and leave. And this is one of the problems we have is that there is no guarantee. We're not sure what the preference is. Some people will think it's sibling preference, and others will say it's pre-K preference. So there's a lot of confusion. And then are we 0.5 miles, because you know that most of the kids don't live 0.5 miles closest to their school. Should that number be raised to maybe 0.75, 0.8, draw a little radius, let's see where the closest families are. And then what is the farthest family from their school? But what John made a point, that families are being broken up and we're not building communities. And that's a big concern for all of us, that there is no community involvement in your school, because you might be hiking across town to your school, and this increases. Actually, if you're within a walking zone, you might be walking to your kids' teacher conference. You might be involved more in your schools that way. One of the other concerns is that I have, it's 2016. I think this process, when I'm putting in an application, should be computerized. Once we have something in a computer system, we could get statistics, we could monitor what the process is, and something where it's clear cut for parents to be able to know what the next step is. And I think that would be huge. And it's something simple. You walk into any store, you see little kiosks with computers. You have placement personnel helping you out. And there you go, just a little process that would kind of hone in on what is actually very confusing.
Or even an app for your phone.
Oh, even, yeah, there you go. Why don't we just scan it?
Text
There
your
you
placement.
go. This is your school. All you have to do is, here's your city school. Boom, you're scanned, and there you go. Here's your address, and I think that would be super. Parents want a guarantee. This is why they're leaving. My friends and families are leaving the city school district because there is, what is 30% mean? You know, if you told me it as a parent, what does that mean? You know, it's confusing to everyone. And Dan had mentioned that he likes the idea of a default school. All I know is that changes have to happen in order to bring our communities together, and this policy has to be fine-tuned. It's about that time. So I don't know what it was and what it is right now specifically, but we need to write it out and have a flow chart for everyone so they understand it.
Can I add to that?
You can add whatever you
The
like.
last little conversation Dan and I had was, you know, if you look at those booklets for the zone, there's no way to know, looking at that booklet, what your neighborhood school is. Which school is within a half a mile and which would get you that immediate placement. It occurred to me that if we older people get our Social Security benefits, like the dollar figures are encoded right into the booklet. If the Social Security Department can figure out how to do that, there's nothing that says we can't customize our brochures that go in the mail to families. Based on this address, you're within walking distance of school 2, 3, and 4. You can apply that 5.5 mile walk zone preference to any of those 3 schools, and then, you know, step 2 is. But right now, you can look at those books and you have no idea what school, you know, what your
30
walk zone
seconds.
preference would be.
30-second comment, Dan?
12.
Okay, thank you. Last group. You want to read it?
Yes.
Okay.
So some problems that we came up with was parents moving, school choice, transportation, and will the community help? Some solutions are having some busing accommodations for parents. Obviously, kids can't control where their parents move to, as well as look at solutions for based on the children and not based on what's convenient for adults. We're not talking about parents, we're talking about administrators and stuff like that. Having mini buses and vans for neighborhood transportation versus big long school buses. We got two-way radios for walking patrols and crossing guards. A front porch watch, which would be asking the community to look out their front doors at different times. Walking school buses, which is where all the local, like from maybe this couple of streets, you all meet up right at the corner and they all walk together as a whole. Maybe some administrative drive-bys, which is where I guess you go by slowly waving at kids, just to let them know you're out here too. And actually, this guy, when he was a principal, he had, sorry everybody, he had worked with the housing authority to find people in his neighborhood before they were moving, apartments in that neighborhood still that they could move to, versus them having to move all the way across town, which would be like a total relocation. Some clarifying questions. What can we do about the lottery system? Because obviously that's an issue. If my neighborhood school is a lottery, I'm not getting into that school if I live across the street. How can we get the community involved? Obviously that's an issue. We would need that. We need the community support in order for them to even want to send their kids to that school, the local school rather. And can we try a beacon school, maybe perhaps 44, to do a test run? The perception, there's a perception issue, how people perceive their neighborhood school and whether or not they think it's a good school or a bad school. And also how to budget based on each, like he said, each particular school, and it doesn't deal with equality, more about equity.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
There's some overlap.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we thought you was easy. So, I mean, those are just our problem solution, clarifying what I got. Did a good
Okay.
job.
Awesome. Just maybe a few minutes of any general comments before we move to our homework. Trying to be time efficient.
Yes, one of the things I wanted to say about one of your last issues with the citywide, I know that the policy that we have now, one of the things that was supposed to be enforced was that citywides were supposed to draw from all, parts of the city, all different zones. There was supposed to be some oversight in how this actual citywide drew from different parts of the city. So I think that's something that was, never enforced or looked at even by a committee or whoever was, enforcing the policy. So I think that it wouldn't be, I think a great idea would be that citywide, if we're looking at transportation, maybe we take a look at citywides and within 0.5 miles, if you are in that catchment area, maybe citywides do have that immediate placement if that's what the parents want. They'd also be assigned to a neighborhood school, but if they live within 0.5 miles of that citywide, but then also they're responsible to draw from all parts of the city. So maybe that's something that, as we make recommendations, we could look at, because it does make sense to, if you're living across the street from a citywide school, to still have that opportunity to go there if that's, makes sense money-wise and commitment-wise, connection-wise, neighborhood, wise. So.
Can you explain to me what the argument is 18 years after implementation of the choice policy for having citywide girls' schools?
That's my question.
Huh?
That's your question.
That's a common question.
Yeah.
Because we might be saying no to more families than we're saying yes.
Well, I mean, didn't we replicate the inquiry model?
No.
It-
What was the inquiry one?
Channel or school 10.
Channel, school 10, school 8, and rural inquiry are all inquiry-based schools now. Haven't we essentially replicated it to the point where we should now be talking about making them zone-wide schools so that they can have neighborhood draw?
Exactly what I said, so don't have no sense.
And we don't have to have a special category. If we just make them neighborhood, or, make them zone-wide schools again.
How long before all the other schools get to do the same thing they're doing, so that there won't be any choice schools and all of the schools are on the same level, so that all of our kids are getting equal education? That's the real question.
The only school I can make a case for continuing to citywide is Montessori, because it's quite an expensive program to create. And we haven't been very successful at I don't think we could replicate it, but we haven't even been very successful at expanding it to meet the need. It's a very unusual case. Montessori is an unusual case. But the rest of the citywide draw schools either don't really have anything unique about them, or they've already been replicated.
Okay, so that's a good question to put out there, the question about citywide schools. We're going to move on and get to our homework, okay? So you'll see in the papers that you got, hopefully everybody has a paper, there are minutes, and then there's a couple of emails, and then there's a report. It's written by Ralph Spezio. And what I'd like us to do for homework between now and the next meeting is read the report, circle things that stand out to you, like for instance, the misalignment about accountability then often leads to family faulty policies. And see, so that could be like implementation issues. Oh, I just pulled something out. So you read it and circle stuff that jumps out at you and see what jumps out at you that seems to connect with the lists that you made in your group. Something might jump out and say, oh, that's what we said in our group.
Let's send several more
Yes.
people who came in later.
I think, those are minutes. Oh, here we go. And here's, So read it, circle things that jump out at you that seem to align with your list of problems and solutions and questions, and we'll come back prepared to dive into finding connections and furthering the conversation, okay? And now we need to talk about dates for the next meeting. I have to say that May starts to get a little crazy.
Do you have one more?
Not one more.
You can take one.
We'll deliver it on my way. Thank you.
May starts to get crazy, yes.
I wrote this in 2012, and I pulled it out from my files, and this is what we were building in the 90s with School 17 from 1990 to 2002. That's what made School 17 a model, state model neighborhood school. The governor came for that occasion. It was recognized as a state model neighborhood school. But this goes beyond what a principal could do in the neighborhood. I try to be a little bit more systemic, so the alignment is not only through the school and community, it extends through the central office,
City Hall.
the Board of Education, and City Hall as well. So that there is, when I say the alignment of accountability, that's what I'm talking about.
So it's broader than,
Yeah.
it broadens the conversation. So anyway, circle anything that jumps out and connect it to what you talked about in your group today so we can knit things together. Talking about dates. So May gets really tricky for at least Willa and myself because we are starting to move toward the superintendent selection. That's going to be happening this month. And so, on the budget, it's a crazy month. So I'm thinking that Tuesday nights might be the very best. I'm going to suggest or see if folks can do that. Wednesday could be a possibility, but looking at the times, is it possible to meet earlier? 4:30?
Is that possible? Maybe? Because that would work on Tuesday or Thursday, then we could, fit it in between all the evening meetings that happen for us. Wednesday nights could be later. Would have to be later. So I'm looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday, Thursday would be 4 or 4:30. Maybe we can get a show of hands. And Wednesday night would have to be later, 7 or 6 o'clock. So let's look at Tuesday night. How many could make Tuesday nights? 4 or
Which
4:30?
Tuesday are we talking about?
Well, we'd probably be picking, so we have
Earlier versus later.
earlier versus later. Okay, so maybe some 4 o'clock. 4:30. Tuesday seems good? Okay. Should I check about Wednesday? Wednesdays later?
Well, depends.
Not quite as many.
We've got,
Okay, I'm just gonna say Tuesdays then, okay?
Yeah.
4 or 4:30? 4:30.
4:30 on what day?
Tuesday. Okay, so now that's the next question. Do we want to keep meeting weekly for a few weeks? Or are we ready to go to every other week? How are we feeling energy-wise here?
What's the time frame? When would you want to have the recommendation?
Well, I said at the outside I wanted 6 months, but maybe we're moving faster. I don't know.
Yeah, make sure you ask the superintendent candidates whether they'll agree with what we come up with.
Well, we have to put it before the board first, right?
And there's going to be budget implications, so it has
Yes.
to be,
Right, right. So that's what gets all parsed out at the policy committee when we take our recommendations to the policy. But we want to be real clear about
Don't
our,
underestimate the impact of budget issues and funding, because the fact that we don't have parent centers in all 3 zones, which the policy still says we're supposed to do. Because policy language never changed, but the superintendent presented a budget that only had one and considered that his marching orders.
right. And my personal feeling about that would be that, we set our priorities, and if it's priorities as neighborhood schools and we need funding, and we need to be doing more talking to Albany, and we need to be writing more grants, that's our grant funding priorities. So we just need to be pairing one with the other.
In terms of how often we meet, how close are we to where we want to be, is one question. And then the other one then is, how often do we need to meet then to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish?
I think we have quite a few more discussions because we want to get even clearer. We want to look at some data. If we're going to hand recommendations to the policy committee, we want to say, well, yeah, we thought this through, and we got the experts to say this, and this is how this could be solved. So we can make it more readily adoptable, right? So, I imagine we have, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 more meetings, don't you think?
I think if we're looking at this being a possibility for the 2017-18 school year, are we looking at that? That this could potentially be a
Let's talk to
policy?
Willa, because she's the policy
You'd
expert.
have to have something for the policy committee to consider in early fall, because they print those brochures in late around Thanksgiving time.
Correct.
Okay.
And the marketing would need to take place much earlier than
Right.
that.
So this is kind of preparation for but we want to it would be great to finish this up at the latest, the end of the summer, right? So, do you want to meet next week?
I'm not in favor, no one's in favor of meetings, but I think we're starting to get momentum. And I'm just afraid if 2 weeks goes by, we're going to lose that momentum.
Okay,
We're on a roll.
that's okay with me. And so we'll just keep checking in. We're like, oh, we're meeting too much. We can make it every 2 weeks. But for now, let's do next week, Tuesday at
What's the
4:30. 4:30 next week at Tuesday. And you can sort of put the rest few Tuesday nights at 4:30 in your calendar.
What's that date?
It is the 3rd, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Thursday.
4:30. That's great. And we don't have these late night meetings.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Are we planning to work in collaboration with, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but the mayor's office, city council, Leonard Brock, or, the poverty committee? I mean, as we're doing all this work, I really feel like we should be having conversations that are not in isolation, and I'm wondering if we're moving forward with this, who is responsible? Are we, how is that connecting with, if we're doing all these recommendations, but another group is working in a different part of the city and a different, how do we collaborate to make sure that we're moving forward?
I agree. We invite folks in, and we also need to be individually meeting with people for coffee meetings, and for those who can't come to these meetings. Yeah.
I just wanted to actually piggyback on her with that, because with all the suggestions that we have here, and I mean, it's really a very good meeting because I'm getting a lot of information I did not have about policies and how this got to where it is now. But my biggest thing is, like she said, if we're not communicating as a whole on what can and will be done, I mean, this is going back to the board saying we're trying to plan to do this, that, and the other, especially with me, because one of my biggest things is not just community, neighborhood schools, but let's go forth to community schools and going forth and trying to get that stuff into place. So, I kind of piggyback with her. We got to have an open door. And I am taking the information. I'm taking everything that's being said back to mental justice, back to our education committees. Parents are coming in. So,
Yeah.
Also, we can go to we can go to their meetings too, and let them know what we're doing, and have them come here as well. I mean, it has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, should we be thinking of, letting the mayor, maybe city council, and the rest of the board know the nights that we're meeting, and, it's an open door. Anybody can walk in here and
So-
listen to us, and,
Action item next week is to list the groups we'd like to outreach to specifically and to invite in
Mhm.
here, because I think
Right.
the community outreach is super important.
Wouldn't we need to?
I've already been talking to Leonard Brock, and he's gonna be on vacation shortly, but when he comes back, he and I will be meeting. And so that's one of the things on the agenda, is talking about this committee
Great.
and other things. And make sure they've got a slot that would relate to what we're doing, but want to make sure that that's happening, not assume that it's happening.
Okay, great. And Ebony, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, wouldn't it be like for the community school room? Wouldn't it be like ideal to have like all of the not all the neighborhood association people, like have like the president of each neighborhood association?
Okay. I'm going to call those names next week. We'll make a good list.
Right.
And we'll schedule them in.
good.
Okay?
Yes.
Any more final comments?
Well, there's another group, the Consortium for Family and Children Justice, that meets once a month at the Danforth
Okay,
Community
bring the
Center.
names in next week and we'll,
So I'm already on that, so I
Okay,
will connect with that group as well.
all right. Thank you, everyone. Good job.
Thank you.